Hey everybody, what's up? It's Danny from Arrows Gaming with the new update to the Dragonhold Necromancer Healer Build. So a couple of things have changed in Dragonhold, and I'm actually right now re-recording the first bit because my PlayStation cut off the video, cut it short. And I'm gonna try and add timestamps on YouTube for you guys because this turned out to be one of the longer videos. But that's just because healing is probably the most versatile job you can have in the Elder Scrolls Online. There are so many situations and things that are very situational. Your skills, to your sets, to what the other healer's wearing, to if there's more Magicka DPS or more Stamina DPS in your group, to what the tank is using, what skills the other guys are using. So if you want to go into endgame, all of these things are very important for you. This build is not only for endgame players though, it explains all of the Necromancer's important healing skills and a couple other healing skills very well. So even if you're just starting out healing, stick with me here. And at least watch the full skills and gear section, because all of that is very intertwined. And it's great knowledge to have if you want to be a Necromancer healer. Okay, so much about that. One thing I want to say right in front before I start with anything is, since healing is so situational, there is no best setup. Like, you can't say there's a best or a meta setup for a healer, because everything depends on who you're with and what they're playing and what they're wearing and what skills they're using to get the most buffs and debuffs for your group and the most healing for your group, or the accurate amount of healing for your group that is necessary, and just maximize your potential as a healer. Right then, let's quickly grab a potion. We've got 64 points into Magicka. Our maximum Magicka pool is 34k, which is big enough, because our Magicka recovery is 2,300, which is huge. Like, really, really great Magicka recovery. Our health recovery is 1k too, and then our maximum health is 21k, which is also huge. You're very hard to kill, you can survive a lot of things, and you will have to as a healer because you're the guy that's keeping the other people alive, so you can't die, or you shouldn't. And then max stamina is 11k. We've got 1430 spell damage and 29 spell critical here. We are using the Disastrous Bloody Mara. That's a new food that was invented in the game, or came into the game with the Witches event 2019. It gives you max Magicka, max health, and health recovery. That's why our health recovery is so high. That will actually play very well with one of our skills later on. Then the Atronach, as the Mender Stone, increases your Magicka recovery by another 299. So our Magicka recovery is huge, our pool is huge, and we've got so much skills that give back resources, we can basically never run out of Magicka. As potions, we're using the Essence of Health potions. Don't be fooled out there if you're buying them. There are potions called Essence of Health which only give health back, but what you want is, obviously, since your main pool is Magicka, the ones that give all three back. So you get 10k health, 7,400 Magicka, and 7,400 stamina back immediately, and it also grants you major intellect, increasing your Magicka recovery furthermore for another 20%. As long as the potion lasts. So these are the best way to go, together with the new Disastrous Bloody Mara food. If you can't afford these though, because they're quite expensive, I think the Mara is very, very expensive right now if you didn't get one of the recipes to make them yourself. And the Essence of Health, a stack of 200 is like about 25k gold, I think. If you can't afford that, you'll be totally fine using the normal blue max health, max Magicka food. It'll only last for 1 hour, not for 2 like the Mara. But it gives you pretty much the same flat resources, minus the little bit of health recovery, which is just a nice bonus to have here. So never mind if you can't afford, or if you don't want to afford these, just use the blue food, you'll be totally fine, I promise. Also, these potions are good as an oh shit button because you get some health back yourself. It shouldn't really happen that your health goes that low, since you're the healer and you can just heal yourself, or you do actually heal yourself with most of the skills anyway, as well as your group. So if you don't want to afford these, just get the normal Essence of Magicka trash pots that will give a little bit less Magicka back immediately, but also give you major intellect to increase your Magicka regeneration for 20%, as long as the potion lasts anyway. So these are your choices for food and drink / potion. Just go with whatever you think is best. I just enjoy the health and the Mara, but the blue food and the essence are perfectly fine, alright. Okay, so let's get into our skills. First thing we've got, Energy Orb from the Undaunted skill line. It's the last thing you unlock. You'll have to grind dungeons a bit and do the Undaunted pledges to unlock it. But what it does is it sends a yellow orb at your group, and everybody in the group can use the synergy to restore over 6k health and almost 4k magicka and stamina. And even if they don't use the synergy, if it floats by them, it'll heal them for almost 1k health. It's pretty simple. It looks like this. Imagine this to be your group of friends and allies there. You just throw the orb at them and everybody in it can activate it or get healed by it. Synergies these days are more important than anything because many DDs in Dragonhold suffer from sustain issues, and also a lot of sets that are relevant for endgame content like Locestes or Alkosh rely on synergies to be taken. So Locestes, for example, gives all the DDs, then Major Slayer, and Alkosh brings down the resistances of the ads and bosses. Synergies for days, right? Okay, next thing, Illustrious Healing. This one's coming from the Restoration Staff skill line. Morph it to Illustrious Healing. It'll last a bit longer then. All this does is put a healing field on the ground for 11 seconds, and it'll heal everybody in there for about 1,600 health every 1 second. It's pretty simple to apply. It looks like this. You got your healing field down. You cannot spam this anymore like you used to. If you put another one up, this one will disappear. So if this is your group of friends and DDs, just put it over them. You can also stand inside them, even if you're a little bit behind them, to apply most of your skills. And you're fine. Next up, also from the Undaunted skill line, first thing you unlock there, Sanguine Altar. This costs health, so whenever you use that, you lose your own health. Therefore, make sure that you got your healing field up beforehand, so you heal the health you lose here back right away for yourself. What this does is it gives them another synergy, the Blood Funnel synergy, healing them for 40% of their max health, and then also applying minor lifesteal to all the enemies in the area of a radius of 28 meters, meaning if your allies hit the enemies, they get healed every 1 second for 760 health about. It's pretty simple. It looks like this. Put the altar down. It's got a radius of 28 meters, and if people damage enemies in there, they heal from it. But more importantly, or also as important, they can activate another synergy. So we've already got 2 synergies on the bar, and there's more to come. Next up is the Intensive Mender. This is from the Living Death Healing skill line of the Necromancer. What this does is you summon a ghostly spirit by your side for 8 seconds, and the spirit heals you or the lowest health ally around you for every 2 seconds for restoring 7,600 health. And it also creates a corpse on death, which is important for one of the skills on our backbar. It's also pretty simple. It looks like this. You summon this guy, and he's gonna heal you or the lowest health ally. So you always want to keep that up. Generally, in this build, you always want to keep everything up. You want to throw the orb whenever you can, whenever your allies are ready to take the next synergy. You always want to keep this up. You always kind of keep your Mender up. You always want to make sure the Blood Altar is down, and when it runs out, reapply everything. Same thing for Combat Prayer, and this is actually the most important thing to keep up because it lasts only 8 seconds. But it doesn't only heal your allies, it also grants them Minor Berserk and Minor Resolve, which is very important because Minor Berserk increases your allies' damage done by 8 per second. So they will by 8%. So they will do 8% more damage if you keep this up. And 8% can make or break a trial, especially if it's a hard one. Very important to keep this up. It looks like this, pretty much an elemental blockade for healers. You slam your staff down and everybody in front of you will get the buffs and get the heals. It only lasts for 8 seconds though. Make sure you always keep it up. It's very important. This also comes from the Restoration Staff skill line, by the way. It's the third thing you unlock. Morph it to Combat Prayer. Next up is Renewing Animation. This is the ultimate from the Living Death skill line. Morph it to Renewing Animation, and what this does is, in a pretty big circle field, you can rest up to 3 people at once just by putting that on them, and you also restore 5,300 magic and stamina for each ally you attempt to resurrect. So this can be very helpful in a lot of situations. I've heard people say that if you're using this, you've already failed as a healer because you're supposed to keep the group alive in the first place. But to be fairly honest with you, I think that's a load of bullshit, because there are one-shot mechanics all over the game in dungeons and trials, and if DDs don't play the mechanics and they get one-shot, there's no way of healing then. Like, you can't heal a one-shot. So I think this is a very helpful ultimate, especially also if you're trying veteran DLC dungeons with people who might not be that experienced and die a lot. You can pretty much save your whole team if you're still alive by putting that down and bringing all the DDs in the tank back to life. Definitely a very useful and very important skill. Now, if you're running with a group where you're pretty sure that no one's going to die much, or that people are going to be able to rest themselves, and you're pretty sure that you won't need this because it costs quite a lot of ultimate, 335 there, you can also use Barrier from the support skill line. It's the ultimate there, and what it does is it puts up a ward around you and your group that absorbs up to almost 25k damage for 30 seconds. So if there's a lot of damage incoming and you need a lot of damage mitigation, you can put up Barrier. It's also a great ultimate for healers. I'm gonna have to play some more PvP to unlock it here. But yeah, if you don't need Renewing Animation because you're pretty sure no one's gonna die, just put on Barrier. That'll help a lot. So this brings us to our Backbar. First up is Elemental Drain from the Destruction Staff skill line. It's the second to last thing you unlock here. Morph it to Elemental Drain, and what it does is it afflicts an enemy with Major Breach for 23 seconds, reducing their spell resistance, and it also applies Minor Magic Steal for 23 seconds. So if your allies are damaging the boss or the target, they'll get 300 magic back every 1 second, which is very important these days, because sustain is a big issue right now with a lot of Magicka DDs. A lot of them run out of Magicka when they're doing their rotations, so our build is focused around trying to provide as much synergies as possible to keep a great amount of healing up, and also to help them with their sustain, which the synergies do and Elemental Drain does, and a couple other things in our setup do as well. We're gonna get to that. I'll also get to skills that are optional and that you could potentially swap out. Next up is Enduring Undeath. Elemental Drain looks like this, by the way. Just got the flames around the target, ice, shock and fire, and you know it's on, and the buffs and debuffs are applied. Next up is Enduring Undeath. This also comes from the Living Death skill line. Can morph it to Enduring Undeath, and what this does is it creates a AoE healing field sort of burst if there's no corpse on the ground that will heal everybody for over 6k health. But if there is a corpse on the ground, you will create a lasting healing field that will heal everybody that's in it for almost 6k health over 5 seconds. But you can consume up to 5 additional corpses on the cast, and each corpse will extend the duration of the heal over time by 5 seconds. So if there's a lot of ads and a couple corpses on the ground, you can let this run a lot longer. It's sort of also an AoE heal, especially if there are corpses on the ground, which brings us back to our front bar and why we've got the intensive Mender on that lasts for 8 seconds, because it's gonna be up there and after 8 seconds it's gonna die, and then you have a corpse on the ground and you can use Enduring Undeath and create the healing field for everybody. If you don't have a corpse on the ground, it'll look like this, just a random burst heal, but it won't stay on the ground. Next up, we got Blood Sacrifice. This also comes from the Living Death healing skill line. It's the first thing you unlock, and it's the single target burst heal, but if you morph it to Blood Sacrifice, it can also heal other targets. What it says is it will heal you or an ally in front of you for over 9k health, which is quite a big amount. but it will deploy Minor Defile on yourself for 4 seconds, reducing your healing received and health recovery by 15%. Now this is not really much a problem, especially if you're using the disastrously bloody Mara food and you're at like 1k health recovery anyway. You barely notice this. And also it can consume a corpse near you when you cast it to heal a second target. So it's a pretty much like the Breath of Life from the Templar, a big single target burst heal. Unless there's corpses around, which is always a nice side effect, it'll heal someone else as well. It looks like this, just a burst heal. And as you can see down there next to our food symbol, for 4 seconds we will get the debuff. But as you can also see, the debuff is gone so quick. You cast it and it's already gone. So it's not really a big deal, especially not with the disastrously paramount. But also if you're just using the flat food, don't worry about it. Just make sure that in these 4 seconds after you cast it, you're not going to get hit by something huge, and you'll be fine. Next up is the Agony Totem. This comes from the Bone Tyrant skill line, the tanking skill line. It's the second to last thing you unlock. Morph it to Agony Totem is very important, because only this morph does give us the effect we're using it for. What this does is you put up a totem with a 6-meter radius that gives everybody in it minor protection and reduces their damage taken by 8%. And after 2 seconds, the enemy, the totem will install fear in the enemies for 4 seconds. So it's basically like a CC for the tanks, but it's also great if you can use it as a healer if you got a lot of ad pools, because after 2 seconds, the people in it, the enemies in it will just stand still in fear and not attack you, not move, not anything, which gives the tank a lot of time to get everything taunted if he hasn't already. But most importantly, and why we are actually using this skill, is because of another synergy, the Pure Agony synergy, that will put magic damage on the target, and because of the minor vulnerability. You can use this on a boss for, say, put it up every 8 seconds, is it? And the boss will get minor vulnerability, increasing the damage they take by 8%. So this is also a pretty big thing. A lot of people are looking for this minor vulnerability buff right now. I don't know why it's gotten such a... why there's so much talk about it, because it's been in the game forever and no one used to care about it. But with the nerfs to DPS, I'm guessing this can help everybody do more damage. So if you're fighting a boss, just put the totem down and keep it up, so the boss will always get the minor vulnerability debuff, and all your DPS in the group will do more damage to them, or it will take 8% more damage, so to speak. Also, if these were a group of ads, just put the totem on them. They will get the same debuff, they will take more damage, and they will cower in fear and stand still like these skeleton guys do right now. That's obviously not the effect, but yeah. Okay, the last thing we've got from the Destruction Staff skill line is the Blockade of Storms. This starts out as Wall of Elements, morph it to Blockade of Storms, just because it lasts longer. The reason why we're doing this is because we are playing a lightning stuff on the backbar, and we are doing an area of effect shock damage thing. But more importantly, there's a chance of concussing the enemies, off balancing them for 7 seconds. And when they're off balance, they're taking more damage as well. So you want to take care of the off balance there. Now on the backbar, this is a little bit controversial. The ultimate Blockade of Storms looks like this, by the way. Just create that Blockade of Storms, they'll take shock damage, and there's a chance to concuss and set them off balance. Now, this is a little bit controversial, the ultimate on the backbar. I'd say the classic way to go would be Warhorn from Assault. Morph it to the aggressive horn. What this does is, for 30 seconds, your allies will get more max magic and more stamina by 10%, and they'll also gain major force, increasing their critical damage by 15% for 10 seconds. So this is sort of the classic tank slash healer ultimate to boost the damage of your group furthermore. And you can still use that. It's kind of situational, and also talk to the rest of your group, because if there's already 2 tanks and another healer with Warhorn, you probably won't need to. But what I'm going for on this build is the Glacial Colossus. This one comes from the DPS Gravelord skill line. And what the Glacial Colossus does is it will hit the enemies 3 times, dealing 7k frost damage with each smash, and also stun the enemies with the final hit. But more importantly, and why I'm using it, is it applies major vulnerability to the target for 8 seconds, increasing their damage taken by 30%. So now you can sort of debate which will do more damage, the major vulnerability, which only this ultimate can give in our setup, increasing their damage taken by 30%, and it also stacks with the minor vulnerability, by the way, from the Agony Totem. So you've got either that, increasing their damage taken by 30%, or the Warhorn, increasing your group's damage, your group's critical damage only though, by 15%. In my mind, the stunning and the major vulnerability are worth more than the Warhorn, especially since the Warhorn can be played by up to 3 other characters in your trial group: the tank, the off-tank, the other healer. And Necro healers can bring that major vulnerability to the table, so I like to use it. But as I said, it's debatable which one of these will do more for your group. Alright, so much for the skills. Now, let's get into some skills that you could also play. This is pretty much a great setup for almost every situation. But if you have someone else in the group, say a Nightblade tank or a healer that's wearing martial knowledge because he wants to, who can put the minor vulnerability on them, you can also replace the Agony Totem with the Unnerving Boneyard. So the Unnerving Boneyard deals 11k frost damage over 10 seconds to everybody in the area where you put it, and it'll also apply Major Breach and Major Fracture, reducing the enemy's spell and physical resistance. The thing is, it also gives a synergy, by the way, dealing frost damage. So synergies, both of them have the Agony Totem and the Boneyard. I'd say for ad pools, this is pretty great, because you can just put that Boneyard down, and all the ads inside of this area will be affected by the Major Breach and Major Fracture. However, the tank, when he pierces the boss, for example, with his taunt with Pierce Armor from the One Hand and Sword skill line, will also apply Major Fracture and Major Breach. So if you're in a boss fight, this is probably not of much use, because the same debuff the tank keeps up anyway by keeping the boss taunted, which he will do. So in a boss fight, I would definitely go for Agony Totem. If you're just running around killing shitloads of ads, Unnerving Boneyard will be a great thing. Then also on the Backbar, instead of Elemental Drain, because you only need one of these in your group. So if the other healer is playing Elemental Drain, you don't need to. You have options as well, mainly from the Destruction stuff skill line, Force Shock, and then you move this to the, what's it called, I think Destructive Shock, the morph that interrupts people. This one has a morph interrupting people, meaning if they need to be interrupted and you're in charge of that, put the Force Pulse morph on that interrupts people, and then you can just far interrupt them like this. It's helpful in a lot of situations, because especially in arenas and DLC trials, a lot of times the bosses have to be interrupted. Say like in Veteran Frostvault, the second to last boss that always summons his IC stuff needs to be interrupted a lot of times. It's a great skill to have at hand as a healer. Let's put Ellie Drain back on for a second. Now, also though, if there is nothing you need to interrupt because the tank is doing it, and if the other healer is playing Elemental Drain, you can still put something else in there. And what you can do then is just go for the Boneyard. So you can basically play the Boneyard and the Agony Totem, meaning you'll have this and also this on top of it. And the great thing is, even one more synergy. So we've already got this one, Energy Orb synergy, this one, Blood Ultra synergy on the front bar, and then Unnerving Boneyard synergy on the back bar, and Agony Totem synergy on the back bar as well. So this will kind of, in boss fights where you don't need to do elemental drain and you don't need to interrupt anything, put this on, and you can be the synergy machine for the group. Everybody's going to be very happy about this, I tell you. Now on the front bar, if you don't necessarily need the Blood Altar, I like it because it's a synergy. I wouldn't take it off, but you could still use, like we used to, you could still use the Bone Armor, the Summoner's Armor. This one gains you major resolve and increasing your physical resistance and spell resistance by 5k for 20 seconds, and also it will reduce the costs of your Spirit Mender. It's not necessary to play this anymore if your group is well set up and you don't really need all these resistances per se, but if you're in a group that struggles a little bit and you're getting hit hard and you're having problems healing the group and yourself, it might help a little bit. And also it reduces the cost of the Spirit Mender, so you could put this on here instead of the altar. Or you could also put the altar back here instead of Blood Sacrifice if you don't need a strong burst heal, though this is one of the strongest burst heals in the game, so I'd definitely keep it up. And then put the armor up here. As I said before in the beginning of the video, everything about healing is very situational. It always depends on the content you're playing and the group you're in. And then there's Necrotic Potency. This will basically suck ultimate from corpses in the ground. So if there's a lot of corpses on the ground, you can use this to suck up ultimate, 6 ultimate, and 1k health every 1 second for 2 seconds per additional corpse. And also, while this is slotted, your damage taken is reduced by 3%. So that's another option you could put on the back bar or on the front bar, either for Blood Altar or for Blood Sacrifice, and play around with these skills a little bit. And it will give you a lot of ultimate. So if you're in an easy trial and the other healer is doing great, and you don't necessarily need to put down the Blood Altar or you don't need the burst heal, you could put this on and suck ultimate from every corpse, and then just spam your Glacial Colossus as often as you can to help boost the damage of the whole group. Another option here. Now let me see if I forgot anything. Nope, this is all covered. Yeah, there is Regeneration. You can morph that to Radiating Regeneration later on. You pretty much use your restoration stuff to give healing to all the allies near you, and put a sort of thing on them where if they drop low health they receive a little bit of healing. This would work well in some situations, in some trials, if you'd use the Maelstrom's restoration stuff too with it, because if you do that it'll give you 800 magicka back for every time. But it's not really necessary on this build, and it's not really one of the strongest healing skills in my opinion. So we're pretty fine without it. We don't necessarily need it. We've got a lot of AoE heals. We've got our Spirit Mender. We've got the burst heal, single target burst heal. We've got a little AoE burst heal as well. So we're fairly well set up with the healing. It will be unnecessary to put regeneration on here also. But there are certainly kind of niche situations and trials in which it could be very useful. So just unlock it, level it up, keep an eye on it. Alright then. That's about it for the skills. Yes, support Purge. Purge just cleanses yourself and your group, removing up to 3 negative effects of them. And then you can move this to Efficient Purge, which will not make it cost a lot less. It won't cost almost 7k magic anymore, because that is expensive as fuck. If you morph it to Efficient Purge. This is also useful in trials like Halls of Fabrication, where people are getting negative effects on them all the time, and you can help them cleanse them from it. It's required in some situations, so morph it up, level it up, I mean, on your way to getting Barrier, like I am right now, to just use this. And also there's the passive, increases your magic recovery for another 5% for each support ability slotted. So if you have to play Barrier instead of Renewing Animation and Purge, you'll get at least a little more magic recovery if you unlock these passives. Very nice also. Which brings us to the passives. Generally, we are a Breton on this build just because of the lower skill cost and the higher magicka. You can probably also run this on a High Elf or any other class that has magic abilities in their passives. But on a Breton, your sustain is definitely the best and the easiest. because your light armor skill lines are your light armor skill levels up 15% faster, which is nice because we're using mostly light armor, and your max magic has increased by 2k just for being a Breton, which is amazing. Then your spell resistance increased by 2300, and it's even doubled if you're afflicted with burning, chill, or concussed, and your magicka recovery, which is great, by 100. And then also all your magic abilities, which we use pretty much only, are reduced in cost by 7%. So Breton's definitely the best healing race at the moment. You can, as I said, also go high elf or Agonian or something. It will still work. It might be a little bit harder to sustain, but yeah. Alright then. I'm gonna make it short, just get all of them, pretty much, because we are using skills from all the skill trees, and all of the passives have their meaning. So this one, when our Spirit Mender dies, the next one is cheaper, definitely good. Increases the critical strike chance against enemies of 20% health. Not necessary, but I think the critical strike chance might as well affect your critical healing. So yeah, but then again it says enemies, right? Yeah, okay, so this one's probably not the cream of the crop. Okay, Gravelord violent abilities, active, your spell and physical penetration are increased. That's alright though for us, because we do have some damage skills like the elemental blockade or the boneyard if we use it. And then this one increases the damage done by damage over time effects, also like the elemental blockade or boneyard, by 15%, so get that as well. Next up, whenever an enemy dies within 20 meters of you, restore 200 magic and stamina. That's great for our magicka regeneration and our sustain. Reduce the damage you take from damage over time abilities by 15% while you have a boneyard ability active. Now, this was more important when we used to use Summoner's Armor in the build before, but right now we've also got the Agony Totem, so why not? Increases your healing received for each ability slotted. That's definitely good. A little bit more healing received is always fine. And then just randomly increase your max health by 1200, which only necromancers have. That's great. That's why we get over 20k health and we're pretty robust. So get that as well. Living Death, you'll need all of them because we are a healer and this is the healing skill tree. If you have a negative effect on you, healing done is increased by 8%. When we use Blood Sacrifice, we put a negative effect on ourselves, so this will work. Also, while you have a Living Death ability slotted, your critical chance with healing abilities increased up to 20%. Definitely worth it. When you use an ability on a corpse, like we do with our Enduring Undeath and Blood Sacrifice, you generate 10 ultimate, helps us to blow a lot more Colossuses out. And then also, while we have Spirit Mender up, our magic and stamina recovery is increased by another 200. So you can see we can pretty much hardly ever run out of magicka. There's so much bonuses being a Breton, being a Necromancer, and using the Atronach Mundus. You could probably even use the Healing Mundus Stone. I've not tried it out yet, but I'm pretty sure it would still work because our magicka recovery is just insane. Destruction stuff, you want all of the passives because we are using Elemental Blockade and Elemental Drain, and eventually the Interruption Morph of Force Shock. And obviously rest of stuff you want all of the abilities, the passives as well, because it's our main hand weapon. Light armor, you want all of these. Medium armor, the only thing you really need, you don't need the weapon critical one because we don't do weapon damage, but this one is pretty good for stamina recovery, so just get these two. Sneak, you don't necessarily need unless you sneak a lot. And then athletics, the last one, increasing the movement speed. That's a pretty good one to unlock too, because necros are fairly slow. And here you get a bonus to movement speed and reducing the cost of roll dodge. So definitely get that as well. Heavy armor, you only need these. Your physical and spell resistance is increased, your health recovery is increased, and your max health is increased. This one also gives you magic and stamina back when you take damage for each piece of heavy armor equipped, and we have one on. So just get the first three. The other ones are only if you're wearing 5 or more pieces of heavy armor, which we don't do. Fighter's Guild you don't need, Mage's Guild you don't need, Undaunted you definitely do need. This one, if you're activating an ally synergy, restore 4% of your max health, stamina, and magicka. Healers do use synergies as well. Sometimes there are, for example, Templars or Sorcerers in your DDs that throw spears or put down liquid lightning and give people synergies. And if the tank doesn't want it, just grab it. Increases your max health, stamina, and magic by 2% for each type worn. So that's a current bonus of 6% because we're using all three. Definitely also great for us to have the increased max health, stamina, and magic. Then Assault, you don't really need any of these passives. Support, only if you're using Barrier and Purge, as I said before, the Magicka A1. And obviously all of your racial passives, that's why you chose a race. And then if you want to, you can level up Medicinal Use and Alchemy, which makes your potions use 30% longer in time. So you can pretty much have 100% uptime on it. As a healer though, I'm not really using that much potions because usually I don't run out of health and usually I don't run out of magicka, so potions are really just an oh shit button. It's not necessary, but it's definitely nice to have. Alright, so much for the skills, all the skills you can use and all the passives you need. Now, what probably everybody's been waiting for, let's get into the gear. We are using a powered, increases our healing done by 8%, Master's Restoration stuff from the Veteran Dragonstar Arena. What this does is, on the initial heal of Grand Healing, you and your allies for 4 seconds are restoring 97 magic and stamina every 1 second. So that amounts to about short of 400 magicka and stamina. If you gold out the stuff, it'll be around 400. So Grand Healing is this thing here, the Illustrious Healing, the ground field on our front bar, and everybody who's in it, when you cast it, will get over 4 seconds 400 magic and stamina back. So it'll definitely help your stamina and magic DDs with the sustain issues that are a topic in Dragonhold. Then on the Backbar we're playing Ollereams. Because Ollereams is still the most powerful healer set, it can give people major courage for 30 seconds, increasing their weapon and spell damage for 30 seconds, and I think it's about the only thing that can give people major courage, so this is a great buff to give people. Also, you get Magicka Recovery and Minor Aegis, reducing the damage taken from Trial Dungeon or Arena Monsters by 5%, which is always nice. Now, Ollereams is a Backbar set. You can wear that on the Backbar only, because the circle you will put on the ground for 10 seconds that will give people major courage if they run through it. Can be cast with AoE abilities, and you've got plenty of them on your Backbar. So to get that Ollereams buff going, you only need to have it on 1 bar, which allows you to use the Master's Resto for people to restore more stamina and magicka on the front bar. Now the Master's Resto is a 2-piece set. The Ollereams lightning stuff counts as 2 pieces, and then the other 3 pieces of Ollereams we've got on the jewelry. You need to do Cloud Rest +2 for them, but you could also have it, say, on legs, feet, and hands, and then use the other set's jewelry if that's easier for you, if you don't know a group that does Cloud Rest +2. All of the jewelry is in Arcane, and then we've got 1 spell damage glyph and 2 Magicka Recovery glyphs. Spell damage glyphs helps us to make our healing stronger, and the Magicka Recovery obviously with our sustain. So that's what we use in there. I'll quickly explain you how Ollereams works. If you're in a fight, any AoE ability you'll do will cast that circle of Ollereams, which gives people major courage. Now we have the Agony Totem as an AoE ability, we have the Elemental Blockade as an AoE ability, and we have the Renewing Undeath, or what it's called, Enduring Undeath as an AoE ability. So you'll see a yellow circle pop up now as soon as I attack something. Bam, I'm in a fight, I'm putting down the totem, and here's Ollereams circle. I'll quickly wait for it to go away, so we can do it again. Say you're fighting a boss, you're standing inside of your group, Agony Totem would be a great way to do it, because the Agony Totem is just gonna be here, right where the group is. So you can just stand within the group, put it there, and everybody will get the Ollereams buff. If you want to do it from a little farther away though, you can just be in combat, and then place the Renewing Undeath AoE thing, and put the circle wherever you want to put it. Or also the Elemental Blockade. If you're fighting a boss, and your group is standing here and you're slightly behind them, so you can buff them with all the combat prayer and the orbs and everything. Just use the elemental blockade and the circle will land right where your group is, and the target will still get damage and off balance and concussion from the elemental blockade. So that's how All Reams works. It only comes in your back bar. Make sure to keep that circle up because that buff, Major Courage, is amazing. Now, the traits on the back bar stuff, on the All Reams Lightning stuff, I got it in Charged with a shock damage enchant. You can also use Infused, that will make it deal more shock damage, so the 30,000 shock damage will go up a little bit and you'll do more damage. But I do like Charged better in this situation, because my only reason to really play that lightning stuff and the blockade, other than putting on Alley Drain, is that I want to concuss and off balance the enemy or the boss, and this off balance concussion is a status effect, so Charge will increase the chance to apply that by 200%, and it is procced by shock damage. That's why I'm using a lightning stuff with a shock damage glyph. Infused has probably a lesser chance of proccing it, but it will do a little more shock damage. It still has a chance of proccing it though, so either go Infused or Charged with a shock damage glyph, you're fine for concussion and off balance. And then on the front bar, obviously powered because of our healing done, and absorb magicka to get some magicka back. If you realize that you don't really need the glyph, you might also just try a weapon and spell damage glyph. So your spell damage and therefore also your healing will get stronger if it procs. Alright then, monster set. We're using Symphony of Blades. This is new, this is from veteran Depths of Malatar. And what it does is it adds 4% healing done. And when you heal an ally who is under 50% of their primary resource, you grant them Meridia's Favor, which restores over 2000 magicka or stamina every 1 second for 6 seconds. The effect can occur every 18 seconds. The resource return is based off the target's highest maximum resource. So for magicka DDs, if they have a higher magicka pool, it'll be magicka they get back, and for stamina DDs, if they have a higher stamina pool, they'll get back stamina. Everybody's gonna be happy. And it's actually very good, because if your DDs in Dragonhold, as I said so many times before, have the sustain issues and they fall under 50% magicka or stamina and they're running out of resources to do damage, this will help them get a lot of stuff back. And also this, the Master's Rester stuff, will help them get magicka and stamina back. So we're pretty much centered around throwing a lot of synergies, which will give them stuff back from the Undaunted skill line if they have it leveled, wearing the monster set and the master stuff, to make sure everybody can put out as much damage as possible, because they never run out of resources. That's why we're wearing this set. And then we've got Twilight Remedy on the body. Twilight Remedy adds magicka recovery, gives you minor Aegis as well, reducing the damage, but all Reams does that too. And adds a little spell damage, and then when an ally activates your synergy, they heal themselves for 21k health, which is huge. Almost no DD has 21k health. Over 10 seconds, and they gain minor force, increasing their critical damage by 10%. So that's also why we play so many synergies, because of this set, right? Because the 5-piece bonus says when an ally activates your synergy, they get all the minor force and the heals. And that's why we're having all these synergies on our bar. Again, we have the Energy Orb, we have the Blood Altar, we have the Agony Totem, and if you don't need Alley Drain or Crushing Shock, that's the morph by the way, for interrupting, you can put Boneyard in here and you have 4 synergies to give people. And all of them will restore their resources and will help you playing your set here, Twilight Remedy, to get them minor force, increasing their critical damage uptime. This is why the build works so well in this combination. The traits for the armor, the big pieces, head and chest and legs, and infused with a tri-stat glyph if you can afford them. It just gives you more health and stamina and magicka. Or if you can't afford tri-stat glyph, just put a magicka glyph on there. You'll get a little bit more magicka, but you'll lose out on a little bit of a health and stamina. Our health pool is very good anyway, so don't be too picky about the tri-stat glyphs. I just like running them personally on the big pieces and infused. It only makes sense in infused because then you get more out of them. But if you're just playing plain Magicka glyphs on everything, you'll be fine as well. And then all the little pieces in Divines. So shoulders, waist, hands, and legs, all in Divines, increasing the Munderstone effect. Meaning our Magicka recovery as well. So we are pretty much a synergy machine, buffing the damage by putting on the Glacial Colossus, by putting on Twilight Remedy, and then debuffing the target, making it take more damage with the Agony Totem and all of that. It's a really cool setup. So much for the build. Quickly go into the champion points here. These are just standard. Obviously, if you're doing veteran trials, you want to look at the guides and shove them around a little bit. But 72 for 23% into Ironclad, Spell Shield 16, 56 and 56 Hardy and Elemental Defender, 51 Thick-Skinned, 19 into Quick Recovery to increase our healing received in case we're in trouble, and also to unlock the Field Physician passive. You should not need to resurrect, obviously, but if you have to, because no one else is alive, you will take less damage while doing so. 44 into Warlord for the cost of Break Free, then 75 into Tenacity and Arcanist for the Magicka recovery, and our heavy attacks that restore Magicka. People sometimes put 100 in there, because it gives you 1% more. You have 15% instead of 14, but I don't think 25 points in each of these trees justify 1% more, because 1% is so minimal. And you can use these points here in Shadow Ward and Tumbling, reducing the cost of your roll dodge by 20% and the block by 9%, and you will get the Treasure Hunter passive, meaning the quality of items you find in treasure chests, in dungeons and everywhere will be better. So more purple stuff, better loot generally. Then we've got 75 into Blessed, increasing the healing done by 14%. Again, people tend to put 100 in there, but I don't think the 25 points are justified. Elfborn, 81, to increase the critical healing we do by 24%. Elemental Expert, 49, to get 11% more from our shock damage that we do, or our frost damage with the Boneyard or the Elemental Blockade. And then 22 into Spell Erosion. We've got 3 points into Staff Expert just because they were left over after I put 40 into Thaumaturge because of the damage over time things we do, like the Blockade or the Boneyard. So just put them into there, the last 3 points, you'll get 2% more on your light and heavy attacks. Alright, so far so good. Now, this is a great setup to play. Symphony of Blades, Master Staff, Olarim's on the Backbar and Jewelry, and then Twilight Remedy on the body. If you don't have these sets or are required to use something else, Symphony of Blades is very hard to get, but there is a easy choice, mainly bot guns, the Night Flames. This comes from Elden Hollow 2 and Veteran. It's fairly easy to conclude, and it gives you more Magicka. And if you heal an ally, you have a chance to summon a Totem that just heals every ally within 5 meters for 3k health every 1 second for 10 seconds. It's still the strongest all-around, or so should I say again the strongest all-around set for healers. So, and it's fairly easy to get. So just grab bot guns if you can't get Symphony of Blades. Or if everybody's fine with their sustain anyway and they don't need you to do all the sustain stuff that Symphony of Blades gives you, put on bot guns anyway. Other optional monster sets for healers. We've got Sentinel of Rakugams, also increases your healing done by 4%, and then when you heal an ally, you have a 10% chance to summon a Dwemer's Fighter that heals them and restores Magicka and Stamina. This got nerfed a little bit. It used to be probably the best set to wear in the latest patch, in the patch before Dragonhold, but now it got nerfed a little bit. It's still good though. It's still, if you need more sustain for UDDs, even though you already have a shitload, just put this on and they'll get even more Magicka and Stamina back. Then another set you could use is Choke Thorns. This gives you Magicka recovery, and it just summons a Strangler that heals allies, heals you or an ally over 24k health over 4 seconds. So this is another random healing thing, but it will only affect one person, so only you or an ally and not the whole group like bot guns will. Therefore the heal is a lot stronger, but it's a nice set to have. Then there's Lord Wardens. This one adds armor because it's actually a tank set, but also it can create a shadow orb and a field of an 8 meter radius, and everybody in it will get increased physical and spell resistance. So if you want to give your group a little more resistances, it's also a nice set to have at hand. You probably won't need it very often, but sometimes it's nice in certain situations. And then the last thing, Earthgore. Earthgore gives you healing done, and if an ally, when you heal an ally that is, or yourself, that is under 50% of health, you can conjure a pool of blood underneath them, immediately removing all previously enemy placed effects and healing the lowest health friendly target in the area for 37k. So this is the biggest burst heal probably in the game, but it can only occur every 35 seconds. It's situational, like if you're in Veteran Asylum Sanctorium and you're taking care of kiting behind the tank and healing the tank only, because it only heals one target for that much, 37k. It doesn't heal anybody else. But yeah, if the tank is close to dying, this will heal him up right away from the start. And then the next thing we can go for is the Master's Restoration Staffs. No, not the Master's Restoration Staffs, generally the Restoration Staffs. There are a couple options you can use here for other content, mainly the Asylum's Restoration Staff, which comes from Asylum Sanctorium, the trial in Clockwork City. What this does is, when you cast Blessing of Protection, the cost of your magic and stamina healing abilities are reduced by 27% for 3 seconds. So Blessing of Protection is this here, a combat prayer, and then the next skill you use will be a lot cheaper. And then the next thing we've got in our inventory would be the Maelstrom's Restoration Stuff. All of these are 2-piece sets, by the way, so all of them are Frontbar sets, resto stuffs. And as I said before, when you critically heal with Regeneration, you restore, if it's golded out, about 800 magicka, and it kind of occur every 4 seconds. So the Maelstrom's resto stuff would only be helpful if you would be using this skill, Regeneration, and morph it to Radiating Regeneration, which is helpful in some content. I'm not going to go into detail, but if you choose to use that skill, then the Maelstrom's Resto stuff might be for you. Overall though, the two stronger ones are definitely the Masters, because it gives everybody resources back, and the Asylum one, because after casting Blessing of Protection / Combat Prayer, which you have to do every 8 seconds anyway, the cost of your magic and stamina healing abilities are reduced by 27%. The next ability, pretty much, basically. So Asylum or Master definitely take the pole position here. That being said, there's one more, the Black Rose Resto stuff. Steadfast Ward applies Major Vitality to your target for 3 seconds, increasing the healing taken on the target by 30%. It's also an option there. It's a very niche thing. There's not too much content where it's important, but Steadfast Ward would be this here, the 4th skill you can unlock in the Restoration Staff skill line, where you protect the lowest health ally around you with a shield that absorbs up to 5k, around 5k damage. The Black Rose stuff would definitely make that better. Usually the Black Rose stuff is more used in PvP, but in very few situations in PvE can be helpful. So if you've leveled everything else up and you got skill points left, just grab Steadfast Ward and try to get it, just so you have it at hand if somebody requests you to use it. That being said though, you do not need to use any of these 2-piece set resto stuffs. If you don't have the Master's Black Rose, Asylum or Maelstrom's resto stuffs, don't freak out. You'll be fine. All you lose is the pretty much restoring stamina to your targets. They'll have a little less sustain than they have with this on, but it's not necessary. You can still heal almost every content in the game very well with just putting, for example, an Olarim's resto stuff on the front bar, so you get the 5-piece set bonus on both bars, or any of the others. If you don't have Olarim's, which brings us to the other sets you can use, there are a whole lot of them. I'm just gonna go over them really quickly because this video is going on for very long already, I know. Major Courage for 10 seconds if you heal an ally or yourself that is at 100% health, and it's only a 50% chance to proc. So this is the second source of Major Courage, whereas Olarim's lasts for 30 seconds after they stepped into the circle and is certain that they get it. Spell Power Cure only has a 50% chance, and only if you heal them when they're already at 100%, and then it only lasts for 10 seconds. So there is no situation pretty much where Spell Power Cure would beat Olareem's, but it is an option to give that buff to people if you don't have access to Olareem's or the Cloudrest Trial. Okay, let's quickly go into other sets you can use. I'll just go into the most important ones. Yorwald's Guidance from Scale Color Peak is a great set to have at hand. It increases your Magicka recovery healing done, and it increases the duration of all major buffs, minor buffs, and damage shields you apply to yourself and your allies. So all of the buffs you give your people in the group will last longer with this. Great healer set, definitely worth having. Olareem's we've already got on the front bar. I've got the armor anyway too, in case somebody wants me to use something else on the staff. Mending comes from the Etherean Archive trial on normal and veteran, and it gives you Magicka recovery, maximum Magicka healing done, and when you use an area of effect heal ability, you reduce the weapon damage of all enemies in that circle pretty much, or within 10 meters of you, for 3 seconds. It's also a very nice set to have, the healing mage one. Worm Cult is a great set to have. It increases your max Magicka, your spell damage, and your Magicka recovery, and it reduces the cost of your Magicka abilities by 4% for you and up to 11 group members, so the whole Trials group pretty much within 20 meters of you. Meaning, if you got lots of Magicka DDs, this would be a choice to wear. Another thing you could wear instead of this would be Hollow Fangs. That's a new set from the Moongrave Fane dungeon that was added with the latest DLC. And that also gives Magicka back, and is probably a little stronger than Worm Cult, but you can also use Worm Cult as well. Then, what else do we have? Century. This comes from, what's it called? God damn it. Banished Cells. It comes from Banished Cells. It's pretty much one of the easier to get sets. It gives you max health, healing taken, max Magicka, and it increases your healing received for you and the whole Trials group of 11 other members within 10 meters of you. So a lot more healing for everybody if they're in 10 meters range. 10 meters isn't very much, so this set is better to use in trial groups where everybody really stacks tightly together. Let me see if I got anything else here. Navintas is a new set from Sunspire. Gives you also minor Aegis, Magicka recovery, maximum Magicka. When you or an ally activates one of the synergies you do, and we've got 4 synergies at most and 3 at minimum, they get a 12% cost reduction for non-ultimate abilities for 3 seconds. And it can occur every 6 seconds. So half the time you can make everybody's skills cost less. I'd say that Twilight with its buff is definitely better, but why not, you know? As a healer, that's the thing. As a healer, you want to be equipped for every kind of situation possible that comes your way. So that's why it's great to really main a healer and farm all these sets and have them all at hand. Let's see if I got anything else here. Nope, not at the moment. Let's quickly check the staffs. Cold Harbor's favorite. This is one of my favorite sets actually. This is craftable in Elsewhere. And what it does, it gives you maximum Magicka, stamina, spell damage, weapon damage, and if you heal yourself or an ally, you summon Cadwell's Noble Mount Honor, who after 2 seconds casts a healing spell on the whole group around it and heals them for 15k health. So this is kind of like the Bot Guns monster set. It's just a random heal that pops up and heals people, especially if you're starting out as a healer. This is pretty good because it allows you to maybe, if you lose attention for a second and somebody's close to dying, then Cadwells can proc and save the guy, you know? So much for that. Let's see what else we have here. Lightning Stuff, the healer. This comes from Veteran Dragonstar Arena. It's not really one of the strongest sets that you want to have. I pretty much just collected it, started collecting it because I was running VDSA a lot. What it does, it gives you max Magicka, Magicka recovery, spell damage, and you gain minor mending at all times, increasing your healing done by 8%. So, not really necessary on a Templar, a Warden, or Necromancer Healer because our healing is strong enough. Maybe on a Sorcerer Healer, who doesn't really have that much healing power as the other classes, this would be nice to have, but then there's probably better sets. Anyway, I was doing VDSA so much I just started collecting it, and it's a choice if you don't have anything else. Just wear that. Then, Lightning Staff of the Infallible Ether. The Infallible Mage set is actually a DD set. It increases spell critical, minor slayer, spell damage, and spell critical. Healers used to wear it a lot because it can also apply minor vulnerability for 10 seconds, increasing the damage taken by 1%. This, however, is the same buff that our Agony Totem gives already, so we won't have to need that set on a Necromancer if you're playing Agony Totem, or if you have anyone else like a Nightblade with Lotus Fang, for example, in your class, who can apply minor vulnerability. This is Spell Power Cure, already talked about that. This is Hollow Fang, by the way, from the Moongrave Fane dungeon, the other Magicka restoring set that is a little better than Wurmcold probably. Gives you spell critical, max Magicka spell critical, and when you critically heal or critically damage a target, spawn a ball of hemoglobin at their location. After 2 seconds, the ball explodes, restoring almost 3k Magicka and applying minor vitality to the allies, increasing their healing received by 18%. So this is a really great body set for healers, especially if you're running with a lot of Magicka DDs as well. Martial Knowledge. This is a set a lot of people are crazy about right now, especially in the endgame community. It adds spell damage and max Magicka, and when your stamina is below 50%, your light attacks cause the damage to take 8% additional damage for 5 seconds. The effect can occur every 5 seconds. So this is another source of minor vulnerability. Just like Infallible Ether, our Agony Totem, or a Nightblade's Lotus Fan, and there's a couple more in the game. Personally, this is not useful for us as a Necro Healer if we're using the Agony Totem, because we're putting a buff on them anyway, and I don't think they stack, because it doesn't say minor vulnerability here, but it sure sounds like minor vulnerability because of the 8%. Yeah, so I wouldn't use this on a Necro Healer, but a lot of other healers are going crazy about it. And if they stack, well, I don't think they do though. You definitely don't need this as a Necromancer, because you can just use Agony Totem to get the same effect out of it. Twilight Remedy we're wearing on the body anyway. Yeah, that's about it. Alright, so much. There are a couple niche situations in which, in very, very, very endgame content, somebody might want you to wear a set like, say, Her Scenes from Celine's, which gives people stamina back on the staffs on the back bar or something, or maybe, because it's a medium set, or maybe even Ebon, though it's a hard, it's a heavy set, maybe even Ebon on Resto and Lightning Stuff to increase everybody's health by 1k. Things like that can technically happen, but with this setup that we've got right now, even if you don't have the Master's Resto, just use Oloreem's Resto and Lightning Stuff. Even if you don't have Symphony of Blades, just use Bot Guns, and if you don't have Twilight, just craft yourself Cadwell's Favorite, or get Sanctuary, or Mending. You'll be fine. As I said, everything is very situational. The build, like I have it here, with Master, Symphony, Twilight, and Oloreem's, works amazing, but it will also work in many other combinations. Just make sure that you really check out the buffs, and you don't use, for example, Oloreem's with Major Courage on the back bar / staffs, and then Spell Power Cure or something on the body, because Spell Power Cure also gives Major Courage, and you don't want 2 sets to give the same buffs, obviously. Okay, I hope I could sort of explain the whole healing thing a little better for you guys. It's very, very situational. If you run with Magicka DDs, use Hollow Fang Wurmcold. If you run with Staminas, use this and that and this and that. Just really look out for what your gear actually does if you're putting your sets together, and make sure you've got a set like this that works great. There are many, many other combinations that work wonderfully. And yeah, good luck on your healing ways. I'm hoping that this has helped a little bit, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Bye bye.